So I did a lot of research before I bought the Live II. It was comprised of watching a lot of videos made by beat makers and YouTubers whose work and words I deeply respect. Over the course of a few weeks, I developed a set of expectations, what I thought I could expect to get once I finally did get the Live II. What it basically boils down to is this. A certain type of producer is actually going to be really pleasantly surprised by the abilities of this speaker. If you use a lot of your more traditional bass making instruments, like an electric bass, as for instance, and I use a lot of electric basses. I play bass, I play a bass, I play guitar, piano, so forth and so on. If you play a bass and you're interested in adding traditional bass flavors into your beats, you're going to be really, really happy with this speaker because it is able to produce all the notes played by any bass that is tuned to concert tuning more than adequately, surprisingly well. If, however, you are someone who likes to use a lot of synths with your bass, and that, i.e., that's like 90% of us out there, 90% of the urban music producers out there pretty much never met a synth line that they didn't love, right? So if you're someone like that, then you need to understand that this speaker is only its purpose in your life is only to have fun with, you should look upon it as something that is able to give you, at best, a reasonable facsimile of some of the low frequencies that you've laid down in your productions, because it's not going to be able to produce bass past a certain frequency, and we'll get to what that frequency is in a minute. Okay, so I didn't want to just give a whole bunch of unfounded conclusions and opinions. I actually wanted to back my opinions up with numbers, science. So to that end, I actually set up a quick experiment, and the experiment has three components to it. Component number one is 2 sets of speakers that is actually going to be shooting out to cameras and mics acoustically. Set of speakers number one, of course, is the Live II. Set of speakers number 2 is my studio monitors. The studio monitors that I have are Samson Rubicon R5A ribbon monitors. Excuse me. And then I have for a subwoofer, I have a Yamaha HS10. And the HS10 is rated to go down as low as 30 hertz. That is why, for this demonstration, I have chosen this note. This is going to be the note that I start with. And I'll explain it in a minute. I'll explain why in a minute. The second part of the experiment is I will be reading the signal that goes from the Live II into from line out into my Apollo, out of the Apollo into my Art Pro MPA2, out of the for some tube magic, out of the Pro MPA2 into my patch bay, out of my patch bay via this green lead. Green lead hits this homemade patch bay that I worked up, and the signal goes out of the patch bay into these 2 leads here, which goes into my pocket oscilloscope, my DS212. We're going to use the DS212 as a frequency counter. The frequency counter is going to tell us the frequency of the note that we're playing at this particular point. As you can see right now, the note is 30, well, it's reading it anywhere between 31.7 and 33 hertz. So let's just say 32. We'll round it up to 32. Third part of the equation is this FFT. Well, it's an FFT app in my phone. What is the FFT going to do? Well, the FFT. Let me explain something about oscilloscopes and FFTs. Oscilloscopes are designed to give the user an ability to view, study AC waves, alternating current waves. And of course, all sound throughout creation is AC, waves. And what you're looking at when you are looking at an oscilloscope is you are looking at the 0 point, which is the yellow line. Oops. And then you see the positive components of the sound atop your 0 point, and then the negative components of the wave below the 0 component. What an FFT is, well, a lot of digital oscilloscopes nowadays include also an FFT function. And what an FFT is it actually takes that wave and is able to break the wave down further into its fundamental and harmonic components. What are fundamentals and harmonics? Well, all noises throughout creation are made up of a fundamental, or the actual note of that sound, plus a bunch of harmonics that come after the fundamental. The fundamental is always going to be the lowest single note of a sound. The fundamentals are going to be regularly occurring spikes that are part of that sound occurring after the fundamental. I will demonstrate what I mean by this by singing a note out, and the FFT is going to pick that up, and it was going to show, when you look at an oscilloscope, the lower parts of the sound are to the left, the higher parts of the sound are to the right. So again, I'm going to sing a note. The fundamental is going to be the loudest single note. It's going to be a spike that goes way up to here, and then after that, you're going to see spikes or nodes that occur after the fundamental, and those will be the harmonics. Here I go. Let's see if I can get to concert A, which is 440 hertz, I believe it is. The last thing that I was pointing to was the fundamental, the actual note, and then what I was pointing to after the fact was the spikes, the harmonics of that note. The harmonics, I know we're not, I said this before, so I'll say it again. The harmonics is what gives the sound its character. The fundamental is the actual note of the sound. The harmonics is the timbre, T-I-M-B-R-E, the character of the sound. It's what tells the listener that if my wife were to come in here and she were to strike the same note or sing the same note, you would see the same fundamental, but the harmonics shown from her voice would be different than the harmonics from my voice, because our voices are different. The fundamental is the same. It's the timbre, the harmonics, that give each and every distinct sound in nature its particular characteristic. Why I'm using a FFT is going to become clear in a minute. Okay, so we'll start by just having the FFT pick up just the sound from the speakers from the Live II, and we're going to see the note spike up, the fundamental spike up, and then we'll see the first note is, I think it's going to be 98 hertz, and it's going to be higher than that. And I'll talk about that a bit, and then we'll listen to the studio monitors, and then we'll compare the both sets of speakers' ability to reproduce the note of 32.7 hertz. Here we go. Okay, again, we can see from the frequency counter that the note is, we'll call it basically 32 hertz. This marker here is not so precise that it will go down to 32. 35 is as close as we can get, but that's okay for the purposes of this demonstration. Okay, we can see that this note, the FFT is picking it up at a loudness of roughly 40 dB. And we can also see the note that I was talking about at 98 hertz, and 98 is the loudest note being picked up, and that's the strength of the loudest note, 76. So what can we glean from this? Well, number one, the speaker is just not able to, like I said, sounds generally have your fundamental as the loudest note. We know for sure that this note is 33 hertz, but the FFT is telling us that this speaker is not particularly good at reproducing the note of 33 hertz. It can reproduce 98 hertz really well. It's being picked up to the tune of 76, 74, 75 hertz. But at some point between 98 hertz and 32.7 hertz, there's a large drop off of volume. Okay, now I'm going to engage the studio monitors, and we're going to see how much louder 32 hertz is able to be picked up, is able to be reproduced by them. Let me first mute my Rode NTA2. And now I'm engaging the studio monitors. Okay. All right, same note. And right now, we're showing 54 dB. So before it was 32 dB, I believe it was. Now the speakers, the studio monitors, are able to reproduce the same note at what, about 12 dB higher. And as you know, 6 dB is considered twice as loud, 12 dB is considered 4 times as loud. So these speakers are able to reproduce a very, very, very low bass note way better than the Live II. If you'll note furthermore, the first node after the fundamental, its loudness has not changed, which is proof that in terms of actual loudness equalization, I've actually achieved it really well. If I had my studio monitors actually playing louder than the Live II, then that 98 hertz node would also be louder, but it's not. It's just as loud with the studio monitors as it was when I was playing with the Live II, which goes to prove that the reason why the fundamental is so much higher with the studio monitors is not because of a volume discrepancy. It's because these guys are much better able to reproduce 32.7 hertz than the Live II is. That's what that proves. Okay, just for snorts and giggles, let's find at what frequency both the Live II speakers and the studio monitors can reproduce a note with equal abilities. Actually, because I've done this take so many times, I actually know what frequency it is, and I'm not going to draw any suspense. Okay, so we're still listening to the studio monitors, and the note I'm hitting, as shown by the frequency counter, is 54 hertz. Okay. Let's move the marker a bit to see how loud 54 hertz is. 66.9 dB. That's how loud that note is coming out of the studio monitors. Let's now turn the studio monitors off, and let's run the same note through just the Live II. It's the same loudness, the same exact loudness. So at 54, let's see here. Let's go lower. Let's go 51. Basically the same loudness. Let's take it down. Right there. 46. That's the first time we saw a really where the actual volume of that note really went into the dumper. See how, watch this note right here and watch how it drops precipitously as soon as we got to 46 hertz. So right around there, 48 to 50 hertz is what we can expect this speaker to reproduce faithfully, accurately. That's actually not bad at all. That's impressive. That's impressive that these small speakers can reproduce a note that low. Let's call it 50 hertz. That's a really low bass note. Just to put that into perspective, 5-string bass, the lowest note on the 5-string bass is going to be the 5th string played open with no fretting. And I tested this yesterday. I believe this note is able to get down to, when it's concert tuned. So in other words, when the 5-string bass is tuned to B, low B, the B before the B lower, the B below the E string. I believe it's like 60, somewhere between 60 and 66 hertz. That's the lowest note that you can expect to get from a concert tuned 5-string bass. The lowest note you can expect to hit on a concert tuned 4-string bass, I think, was in the mid 80s, 85 to 88. And the lowest note on the 4-string bass is going to be your 4th-string open, which is E. I believe it's like 88, like I said. So what we're saying is this Live II, the speakers from the Live II, is actually able to reproduce notes that are considerably below the notes that can be produced by an electric bass, whether it's 4-string or 5-string. That's really impressive. And that bears out my experience with the Live II. I've already done a few beats with the Live II, and I think all of them have involved me playing bass. And I have found myself being really satisfied with the bass sounds that I've been getting from the speakers, with its ability to reproduce my bass playing. It's been really punchy, poppy, and warm and full, and that's exactly what I want from a bass mix. So again, I think what we're learning is a certain type of producer, someone who's interested in using a lot of traditional sound sources, traditional bass sources, is going to be really thrilled with the capabilities of these speakers. The thing is, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that most urban music producers, whether you're talking about hip hop or house or electro funk or drum and bass and so forth and so on, really have an ongoing love affair with synth bass, with bass sounds that are produced by synths. And we all know that synths can go far lower than 50 hertz. Just to prove my point, let's go down to the lowest note that bass line, that's this synth plugin that I'm using, the bass line is able to produce. It's that note right there. That note, the frequency counter is saying is, we'll call it 9 hertz. 9 hertz. Okay? That's not a particularly usable or listenable bass sound, so let's look for the first bass sound that I would consider usable in a musical context. I like that one. Okay. Frequency counter calls that 25 hertz. That sounds about right. Yeah, I could see myself wanting to use something like that in the production. Here's the problem. If I do use that frequency, I'm not going to be hearing that frequency from the speaker. What I will be hearing are the harmonics of the sound. This is where all psychoacoustic bass makers, all purveyors of psychoacoustics, Bose Laboratories and people like that, that's where they've made their money, through psychoacoustics. Their ability, through their studying of sound, they have figured out how to trick the brain into thinking that it's hearing sounds that are a lot lower than it's actually hearing from certain speakers. Most human brains, when they hear that, are actually going to fill in the blanks. All the stuff that is being, that they're missing from this speaker, it doesn't really matter so much, because most human brains are going to look at all the other frequencies of this note and ascertain, oh, well, I'm hearing a low note of 25, even though from this speaker at least, you're not hearing it. Okay, now, actually, there's not a speaker in my house that will be able to go down to 25 hertz. Like I said, my subwoofer can go down to 30 hertz. That's pretty low. So, that's my thoughts on the speaker. I won't call it a mixed bag. I will say you're going to be able to have a nuanced love affair with it.